You can drink, but just don't get drunk. What are the do's, the do not, the things that you cannot do and the things that you can do? Do we have answers for that? Do we have answers of what the law is all about and what the law allows us to do and what the law really doesn't allow us to do? Do we understand the law of God well? Because as Christians, we need to make sure that we understand some things that Jesus actually came to teach us all, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we only hear what other people say. The rules in my house before Sabbath was very simple. They were, you clean the house, you clean your room. Before Friday, before sundown on Friday, I go into my bedroom and start cleaning everything, just making sure everything is clean. The restrooms, that's your command. You have to do it also, Dante, so you go and clean the restroom there and all of that. And you take showers before sundown. And you better take a good shower because you're not going to take a shower until Sunday. Because you are not allowed to take showers during Sabbath day. So there I am, and there we are, my mom, because we didn't have hot water, going to the stove and putting a big pot of hot water, and then taking it back to the restroom or to the shower and putting in a big tina, and mixing that everywhere, and there you are, a jicarazos, as we call, by cups. Before sundown, and we were so worried, running. I remember running. Because, come on, hurry up, the sundown is on. And you are kind of trying to figure out, sundown. And there was a mountain, and you're like, is sundown when the sun goes behind the mountain? Is it when it's up there? Because I still see daylight, but it's behind. And you are start trying to figure out not to break the law, not to break the rules of Sabbath keeping. And when you go to church, and you worship. And I remember clearly, you are supposed to be silent and worship. You don't do anything. You don't stand, you obey, you sit next to your mom, and you have deacons and deaconesses. The deacons are by the doors. The deaconesses were by the hallways, by the aisles. And all of them, all the deaconesses, they have a sign of Jesus doing this. And every time they hear some noise, all of them, they look at each other strategically and they raise the sign. Jesus telling you, shh. And if you don't do that and you still are noisy and you are young because you don't know what to do. I mean, come on, church is too long sometimes and it's made for adults. I remember these deacons, the deaconesses they cannot do anything. They go, be quiet and you keep doing things. And then, I remember, they go back and they talk to the deacon, the guy, the man. And he brings this long stick. Long enough to reach my head with a little tiny nail on top of that and reaching and just going in my head. That's painful. Why do you use a nail to hit my head so I can be quiet in church? You're supposed to be quiet. That's the rules. And if you go to the beach, that's another set of rules. Because you're not supposed to get wet. You can walk around. You can be like, when there's the water, it's so hot, it's humid, I want to be there. No. According to the rules, you don't go and get not even your feet wet. And if you get your feet wet, somebody, one of the elders, one of the youth workers who are helping, they come and, they bring towel. Come on, move, guys. You were in trouble. Because you don't get wet, your feet don't get wet at the beach in Sabbath day. They meant well. They were trying to follow in rules in order of not breaking the law of keeping the Sabbath what? Holy. Not keep trying to make sure that you don't break that law, that rule, because Sabbath day is holy, and when it's holy, you better understand that you are in front of God, and He is actually watching you. And that's what I learned. God is watching me not to be happy on that day, not to enjoy that day, not to be a delight, as the Bible said, but He's watching me so I don't do things that are supposed to be wrong. And as Adventists, we learn and we are very good of knowing what are the things that you are not supposed to be doing in Sabbath. We know more about what we are not supposed to be doing in Sabbath than what we are supposed to be doing in Sabbath. As Christians, we know more about what we are not supposed to be doing as Christians, and we don't know what we're supposed to be doing as Christians. That's why you have on YouTube many videos of people answering, do Christians drink? Do Christians do this? Do Christians go to parties? Because you are trying to find answers, because the church don't give you the answer, because the church only give you the answers of the things you are not supposed to be doing. And that's all you learn. As I'm looking this way, one day I'm going to come here and I'm going to preach without shoes. When I see him, I get so excited and happy. Look at him. He enjoys the moment. No, really. I'm not telling you. Really, when I see this is it. But we never learn that, right? We only learn there are some things that you are supposed to be doing in order for everybody to even accept you. Going to school at the university level, I remember, you even don't go to the library, because the library in some ways, because they have rules. And inside the library where everybody's studying, you don't use a baseball cap. Any hat. And if you do, they come and they approach you as you are reading your book, and they tell you, can you remove your hat, please? And you're like, what's wrong with my hat? You're not supposed to be using a hat in the library. Why not? Because it's the temple of knowledge. Okay? But it's very interesting, because we are trying to keep these rules. We just have all of these rules so that way we don't break the general idea of things that we are not supposed to be doing. But that's nothing new for us as Adventists. In California, we have quite a few rules and laws that doesn't make any sense. Penal Code Section 11-225. Animals are banned from mating publicly within 1,500 feet of a tavern, school, or place of worship. So make sure that if you bring your dogs and they like each other, they better be at least 2,000 feet away, because this is a place of worship. The city of Arcadia have a law which all of these don't make sense, but they're there and they're old. Peacocks have the right of way to cross any street, including driveways. Baldwin Park, nobody's allowed to ride a bicycle in a swimming pool. Who created those laws? Blythe, the city of Blythe, you are not permitted to wear cowboy boots unless you already own at least 2 cows. Makes sense? Why do you gonna call yourself you're a cowboy when you don't even have a cow? Right? That makes sense. Why do you laugh? Somebody needs to make sense of all these rules. Chico. Detonating a nuclear device within the city limits results in a $500 fine. By then, nobody's going to pay anything because everybody's gone. But remember, those rules, don't break the rules, those laws. Dana Point, the last one on my list. One may not use one's own restroom if the window is open. And I do that all the time in Riverside. Thank God we don't have those rules in Riverside. But it's interesting to know that we have laws and we have rules in order to try to keep people in order. Try to make sure that those are guidelines or whatever we think they are. And we don't realize that to some point becomes to be absurd. And it's not the intention of whoever wrote the law, maybe even in those days, the same intention today. Law is the system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as a regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. That's why you break the law, something is going to happen to you. And that is the idea that we have as Christians, that if you break the law, then something is going to happen to you. That's why maybe you have an issue of a broken heart, or maybe you are suffering because the penalty of what you did is just that God is punishing you. And then I read that rules could be three things. A prescribed guide for conduct and action, regulations prescribed by a founder of a religious order for observance by its members, or maybe an accepted procedure, custom, or habit. And when I read all of that, I'm trying to think about my church. I'm trying to think about my Christian life. I'm trying to think, where do I fit? What do we have? Do we follow the commandments of God? Do we follow the law of God? Do we follow rules that every church has? What do we follow? And where do I actually fit in order that I can really please God? And we try that constantly. Because we want to please God, we try to follow each one of them. It's easy for any Christian to be obsessed over rules of their faith than anything else. And that is called what? Legalism. The moment in which you forget that there's something more behind the laws, behind the commandments. There's something more than just saying, I'm going to follow this, and I'm going to follow what the church says, and I'm going to follow what this person is telling me. There's more than just that. And hopefully today, we can find it. Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 to 20. That's the story for today. And you probably know that one very well. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 to 20 starts by saying this. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. Have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. 18. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappears, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. 19. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches other accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. And when you read that passage, there's a lot of stuff to talk about there. And it's sometimes a little confusing. And the first part, we usually read it. You see, Jesus came not to abolish the law. Jesus came to actually fulfill the law. So we are fine. As long as we do what Jesus did, we are okay. Is that correct, Pastor? And I could tell you, yes and no. And now it becomes to be the struggle for all of us. What do you mean? And it's very interesting because when you read, and keep this in your mind, 17, do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. That's right. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. He's correct. But then we continue, and he tries to explain a little bit more in the next verses. he's telling, for truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of pen by any means disappear from the law, until everything is accomplished. He's saying now in the next few verses, couple of them at least, he's talking and saying the law is not going to change. The law is going to stay there. As long as you and me are alive, as long as this planet still is not destroyed, the law is going to be there. And now we get to be a little bit scared or whatever that means, because something like, wow, the law is there, so we are under the law. How do you apply that? And yes, the law is still there because that's the law of God given by Him. It's not going to be removed. And Jesus didn't came to abolish silently all those commandments and all the laws that silently He just said, oh, you don't need to do that. Now just do whatever you want. Now we have struggle. We have something difficult in my mind and your mind, because we are all thinking, so where are you taking me with all of this? And He even emphasized at the end of that short passage, for I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Eh? What is this? So let's go back to the first verse. He said, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. And we forget that part. We translate the word fulfill in Matthew chapter 5:17 by thinking He only came to do what the law does. He came only to just practice that in His life, so that's what I need to do. But we forget that the word fulfill in Greek is more than just that. Fulfill means this: make it full, to fill up, and to fill to the full. Now that changes everything. Because He came to a practice or to add something to the law, because the law wasn't complete. The law wasn't already fulfilled. It was full. He came because that law was half empty or half full, maybe 3/4 full. But He came to add something, to make it happen, to fulfill, to make sure you and me understand that law, the way we understand it, is not that anybody else or churches or Pharisees or anybody else understand. It's the way God understands. That means that when He came to fulfill, to make it full, to fill up, and to fill to the full, that means that the law is not complete. Something is lacking in that law. Something is missing in that law. Following the law and the law alone becomes to be easily legalism, where you and me silently are afraid of breaking the law. And we create rules to make sure that we don't break the law, because then we are going to get lost. I don't want to get lost. Because we are going to be punished. I don't want to be punished. That God is watching you. So you become to be someone that is so strict to the word. And you follow traditions, some restrictions and rules that churches create, and you try to follow, and everybody says this is the way it's supposed to be done. There is no more the free will that God has given you to apply the law into your life, because now you're following laws of groups, following laws of people. And they are good in many ways, because the intention behind those rules and laws are good. But the consequences, the way it changed your life, are wrong. So, law without Jesus, law alone, is legalism. But then, when you follow the law and Jesus, when you follow the law and what Jesus teaches, is different. You see, many people have a problem with that. Because then is when we start struggling with the idea, no, following Jesus, you mean follow, he said love everyone. And we cannot just say love everyone. By love, you're going to be saved. And no, needs to be clear. And they just cannot mix both of them. They said, oh, it's the law, you follow the law, or you just follow. No, and we have a huge struggle. The point that Jesus made was simple. Something is missing from the law. I came to fulfill that law. What is it? What does it mean? You see, all of this talk about the fulfillment of the law, this Bible text, is coming after the Sermon on the Mountain. Right after the first verses of the Sermon on the Mountain, he's talking to people. He's trying to get in touch with them one-on-one. And they're sitting, listening, and then he jumps into this. And Jesus is trying to create at that moment a kingdom that is different than anything else. This kingdom amazed many of the listeners because this kingdom was so different than life in this world. It was different than anything else they heard before. The kingdom of God becomes to be something out of this world. A brand new idea that they said, what are you talking about? So when they hear Jesus talking about the first things about talking about the Sermon on the Mountain, the points he's trying to make, and now he brings the law, everybody gets to be amazed. That means that law is nothing without Jesus. And I want you to hear that. Law is nothing without Jesus. If I want to go a little bit crazier here, I could say, according to John 14:9, Jesus answered this. Don't you know me, Philip, even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me have seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? And what he's trying to say is like, I'm just like the Father. I'm the Father. I'm here. That means that law can be nothing without Jesus, but law can be nothing without the Father, without God. Then if I want to still get crazy about it, I can go and say law is nothing without the Father, because according to 1 John chapter 4, verse 7 and 8, says this, dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. Now I keep adding this thing. Is the law means something with Jesus, meaning it means something with God, meaning it means something with love. The law cannot be applied, cannot be successful, cannot work without love. And now you probably will say, Pastor, you're going to the extreme. Am I? Because according to Romans chapter 13, verse 8 to 10, and which talks that law without love means anything, says this, owe no one anything except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. Anyone who has loved another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. Any other commandment are summed up in this word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. You see that circle? It's going crazy. Law is there, but law doesn't mean anything with Jesus, without Jesus. Which doesn't mean anything without God, which doesn't mean anything without love, because love is the fulfillment of the law. You and me cannot apply law, cannot apply the Ten Commandments, cannot judge anybody without love. We don't have the right to tell anybody that is wrong without love. We don't have the right to tell anybody they are not welcome into church without love, because once you have love, all that thing disappears. Because Jesus came here to teach us something different. And he said it later on. John chapter 13, 34 and 35. A new commandment I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everybody will know that you are my disciples. And if you love one another, which also means that I'm giving you a new commandment. Not that you are going to replace the old one, but you're going to add it, because that's what I want to teach you. I want to teach you to add the new commandment that nobody else knows, because everybody goes by law and they apply it so strict that people suffer, that people die, that people leave the church, that people don't come back to the feet of Jesus. And the new commandment is you love everyone. And you add a new commandment to all the other commandments, and that's supposed to be the one thing as Christians supposed to follow. Now you analyze all of that. Now you think about all of that. He's not coming to put all the other laws aside. But this new commandment is added so law can make sense, so the commandments can make sense. That means this. If you remove the person of Jesus from the law, we are wrong. If you remove the person of Jesus from the church, we are wrong. If we remove the person of Jesus from prophecies, we are wrong. If we remove the person of Jesus from our lives so we can please God, we are wrong. It's time to come back. By understanding how God wants us to understand what love is all about. What rules are all about. Rules changes. Rules can be different everywhere. Rules in Mexico can be different than in Peru, and in Peru different than here. That's not God. That's us putting a picture, frames, and the picture of God and saying, this is God. God doesn't go in a frame. He's bigger than that. And when we said the law of God, the commandments, is the character of God, that's partially true. But it's partially true because those 10 commandments is only a small frame of what God is. And that's why Jesus came to add what is needed. That's why Jesus came to add what you and me need to know. Love one another. Love your neighbor. Love the ones who do wrong to you. Love the ones who are next to you and you just don't even like. Love, love, love. And that's the one thing that we don't even think is right. How can that simple could be? It's not simple. But you need to understand the whole law behind. You have to mix both of them. And law becomes to be different for you and me. Let me finish with a story. This law has been misunderstood. I remember back in my days in high school. A few years back, not many. Still young, right? But I remember having a teacher. He was a math teacher. I'm not going to mention the name. He's probably even dead by now. He was teaching math, and everybody loved this teacher. Everybody, really. I love the guy. He said some things that sometimes doesn't make sense, but he thought, and he said, man, I'm deep. And we were laughing, right, you deep. Tell us one of your deep thoughts. Oh yeah, deep thought. You want me to tell you a deep thought? Let me tell you a deep thought, he said. And he said in Spanish like this: Como quisiera quererte, como te quiero yo. How I wish to love you the way I love you right now. You're like, what? We all laugh, have good time. He enjoy being together with the students. Until, according to the church, he made a mistake. Not a big one, because as human beings, we like to just have these sizes of things, right? You like, that's a small one. Oh, you're fine. You can be part of church board. That is no problem. Oh, you don't like people, and you actually, you have some orgullo, like, you're fine. You can be part of church board. That is no problem. But if you sin, like cheating your wife, then you are not part of church board. Now you're out of the church. And that's what he did. He cheated. And I'm not going to go into details. I'm not going to try to find out what happened really, Maybe it's this. No, forget that. I'm just going to keep it simple. He cheated. He was out of the school. No more Adventist system for him. No more church for him. He needs to repent to come back to church. And he needs to show it. But until then, it could be probably months up to a year, 2 years before the church says, you are welcome back. Why do I say that? Because he came back to church 3 months later. And he was sitting in the back, in the pew, when nobody can see him. And all the students, including me, approach him. Hey, good to see you. And we all like to sit down next to him because he was really fun. He was a friend. He wasn't only a teacher, he was a friend. And I was sitting there, and we were sitting there. And I remember parents, including my mom, coming to me and say, come sit to me next to me. Because he's not a member of the church. Because he's a sinner. Él ha pecado, mijo. Really? And he was sitting there just moving his head, smiling, taking the punishment, taking the punches. And we all, young students, were leaving his side one by one. And look at him like, what's wrong? I'm trying to complain, but you don't complain to your parents. No way. And he was left alone in church. Because the rules and the law was very clear. You make a mistake, you're out. What happened to him after 6 months? What happened to him after a year? What happened to him after 2 years? You know what happened to him? He killed himself. You know how sad is that? He died alone in his apartment because he didn't have anybody else. He tried to visit the church. He tried to come back. But we didn't have the heart of Jesus Christ. We didn't have the heart and grace and love of Jesus Christ. We only had the law. And law kills people. Law pushes people away. Love makes you feel bad and make you feel so bad and keep you away because we are better than you and you should know better. But if we mix law and Jesus, you know what it will be? We will be eager to bring him back, to be sitting in front of you, to worship with you and me, to embrace him as a brother and a child of Christ. The law needs to change. No. People need to change. ¿Quién sabe? Maybe. You and me needs to change. It's time to see the law according to Jesus. It's time to use the law, apply the law, but not without Jesus. The day we remove Jesus, the law means nothing. The day the church remove Jesus, the law or the church mean nothing. The day the prophecies remove Jesus, prophecies mean nothing. Because there's only one person who is alive and wants you back. And his name is Jesus.
So glad you're here. You know, the old evangelist Vance Harbner once said, "The vision must be followed by the venture." It's not enough to stare at the steps, we must step up the stairs, right? We've all heard the saying, you don't get what you work for. You don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for, right? You have to take action. And we know this because faith without works is dead. So you don't get the church that you wish for. You get the church that you help make. One of the ways we do that is not through the funds that we wish for, but through the funds that we help give. Pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for everything that you've given to us. Thank you for all the ways you've blessed us. And bless all these offerings and all the people that are going to take this action now. Thank you. In your name, amen. The deacons will assist you.
to set me free. Now I live to bring you praise.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, such a beautiful day today, Sabbath day. Allow us to enjoy the presence of each other's company and family. Such a beautiful day because today we came to worship your name. We heard and participated with such a good praise music. We came together as fellows, as members, friends, to fellowship together. And as we leave this place, allow us to leave this place knowing that this week and any time in our lives, we are welcome. We are welcome into this church, this community. Because this community is not about law. It's about law and Jesus together. Thank you. Thank you for you love us so much. We ask all of this in the name of Jesus. Amen. You are welcome to stay after this for Sabbath school. God bless you and see you next Sabbath.